coursework 1. So coursework 1 was on Kim and Lynn. As per the module handbook, you have to rewrite coursework 1 as part of your second piece of coursework. This is in addition to your answer for Edward and Sandra. So the idea is that great big scenario that you were presented with in September, you answer in entirety for your second piece of coursework. However, it's split into 2 parts. And again, just to remind you, you use the feedback, written feedback, the oral feedback from myself and the other tutors, and also the feedback from the group lecture. You use all of this to improve your work. Now, you need to consider there are 2 changes that need to be made. The first change is in relation to the element course of conduct. Now, the structure essentially remains the same. You have to set out that element, the course of conduct. You have to state the relevant sections of the Act, which is Section 7, subsection 3A, as well as Section 7, subsection 4. And then you have to discuss the relevant case law, which is the law emerging from the Crown against Hills. Then you have to set out the material facts. But in this rewrite, you only need to set out the relevant material facts. And these are the facts that are relevant to a course of conduct. So, for example, you may choose to say that Kim and Lynn have been in a relationship and that they live together, but after 2 heated arguments, they broke up. After they broke up, Kim was angry with Lynn for ending the relationship and had moved to the other side of town. And there were 3 incidents that took place after that breakup. And then you can set out what these incidents are. Now, because you set out the relevant material facts and you would have identified the incidents in the facts, that means your application of the law changes slightly because you don't need to identify the incidents again. You've already done that. So you move straight into your application of the law in the sense of you tell me about the time frame of the incidents, you tell me how many there are, and that these are more than that which is required by the law. And you can also tell me about the cogent linkage, which I've already stated, is Kim being angry at Lynn for ending the relationship. Now, the second change is in relation to amounts to harassment. That's the second element in the Kim and Lynn scenario. Now, you explain the relevant section, that's Section 7, subsection 2, and then you have to add in the case law from the Crown against ZN. And that is the work we've been doing this week. Those paragraphs that you've been writing in class, you then need to add in at this point to the Kim and Lynn scenario. The material facts stay the same. So, for example, you may choose to say that all the incidents have caused Lynn to become anxious and upset. Now, your application of the law will change because you've got to apply all that lovely case law from the Crown against ZN. Because you now have a better definition of what harassment amounts to, you need to apply the law as one. We've been going over this now in this week's sessions, so have a go at doing this yourself. But remember, you need to set out the law in order to be able to apply it. Now, there's no change beyond this point. The third element that the prosecution must prove is amounts to stalking. So you set out the law in relation to amounts to stalking, and you explain that you have 3 requirements for this element set out under Section 2A, subsection 2. You can see these on the screen. You need to explain each requirement separately. The first requirement amounts to harassment. Now think, has this already been set out and satisfied? If it has, say so. Then deal with the next requirement. The second requirement is acts or omissions involved are ones associated with stalking. First of all, you need to set out the examples in section 2A, subsection 3 in full. You need to do this first. Then you need to identify the relevant examples from the material facts. And then you apply the law to the facts. So you identify those relevant examples from the facts and how they satisfy the examples set down in section 2A, subsection 3. Then you move on and deal with the next requirement. And this is knows or ought to know amounts to harassment. This is also the mens rea, which you need to tell me. Set the mens rea out in full. This is found in section 2A, subsection 2C. There are not two elements. It is either or. You've got two limbs, in other words. You need to discuss both limbs, and it's a question of emphasis as to the detail you place on one of the limbs. So you discuss the knows part first, in that there is nothing in the facts that indicates Kim knows what she's doing. So you then have to discuss the oughts to know, and that requires setting out the test in section 1, subsection 2. Once you've set out that test, you then need to apply that test. Remember, when you apply the test, reflect the language in the test. So, for example, a reasonable person in possession of information such as, and you can go on from here and complete that yourself. Don't forget your conclusion. You still need to tell me whether it's likely that Kim could be found guilty of the section 2A offence of stalking. Now remember, the 30th of November is not a submission date. You submit your rewrite of Kim and Lynn and your answer to Edward and Sandra at the same time. The date's on Moodle. Your submission for coursework 2, the submission date, is Monday the 17th of December. The 30th of November, so next Friday, is the date that you have to show us any rewritten pieces of coursework. And you do this in your office hours, in my office hours. You will see on Moodle, I have extended office hours throughout next week. That's for you to come and show me your rewritten pieces of coursework with the 2 changes that have been highlighted in this PowerPoint lecture. So good luck.